Welcome to Decentralized News, our weekly news show where we cover the stories affecting the cryptocurrency space. I'm your host, Peter DeVries, joined as always by Ozzy. We have, again, large number of stories to get to, so let's get right to it. Nothing we say is financial advice. Please do your own research.
Hey guys, just want to say thank you for getting us over the 100 subscriber mark. That's massive. We cannot be more thankful for all of you who have supported the channel and watched our videos over the last 4 months. And we hope that you continue to support us as we continue to produce more content for you guys every week and well into the future. Thank you so much for the support.
Woke up this morning, Bitcoin's down. It's Monday morning. Bitcoin prices have been going down all day. We're at about 4% down right now. I was looking around Twitter for what's going on. Not to say this is what's going on, but one of the stories that had come up was that Bitcoin was possibly under a DOS attack. Did you hear about this, Ozzy?
Yeah, a DOS attack, yeah. It was rumored that was going around Twitter for the last day or so over the weekend. Bitcoin fees were like through the roof. Absolutely insane. To the point where Bitcoin actually was charging more in fees than it was paying out in blockchain rewards. And Binance shut down Bitcoin withdrawals for a little bit because they had to move Bitcoin out of cold storage and fees were too high.
Yeah, so there's been kind of this ongoing debate on whether Ordinals and now these BRC20 tokens and whether they're good for Bitcoin. And it's just, I've been struggling with this whole idea. I don't know whether it's good for it or not, but this idea of a disruption of service attack helped clarify it for me, because what's going on with this? And basically, Bitcoin has a limit to how much data can be put on the blocks that come down every 10 minutes, and they get their 6.25 BTC for the block, but they also get the transaction fees for the block. And now the mempool is full because of all this. And the open market has taken over for the transaction costs. It's not the minimum charge anymore. To what you said, to the point where there was one block where the transaction fees was higher than the block reward. It was just one, I believe, but it's cooled off a little bit. But generally speaking, I'm thinking I'm not too worried about it. The positive effects seem to outweigh the negative. The positive effects increase rewards for the miners, and they've been getting hit pretty hard. So it encourages them to keep growing, which is good. And it encourages the adoption of solutions like Bitcoin Lightning and maybe more creative solutions in the future. There have been disruptive effects, like you mentioned, with Binance. They halted withdrawals twice, but they've adjusted their fees, and they are working. They've announced they're working to enable Lightning on their exchange,
which would help reduce fees significantly. I think.
Yeah, and the other thing I heard was that Coinbase does not have Lightning on their exchange either. So there's room for adoption there.
Yeah, there's definitely room for adoption, but it also, I think, something that's really good about what this shows is that there's potentially transaction fees that will be able to support the Bitcoin network after mining rewards disappear.
Yeah, like it almost proves that there are going to be use cases, because I've definitely come to the conclusion I can't stop Ordinals or BRC20 tokens, but watching it unfold, yeah, I'm a little less worried about it today. Reserve the right to change my mind.
Reserve your right to go back on everything you say.
Yeah, absolutely. Related to this story, Microsoft announced Lightning rewards. Kind of before we get into the macro, this whole story. So they've announced a program where companies can reward customers and their employees with Satoshis. Did you see this?
Yeah, I saw that. It's basically like micro rewards with Satoshis.
Yeah, incentivizing good behavior, good attendance for the employees, going to corporate events, that kind of thing, contributing. For customers, referring customers, leaving reviews, making purchases, all those kinds of things. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's basically just a rewards program. Like in Canada, we've got Air Miles or Scene Points or Aeroplan for your credit cards, or Eclipse Points. So it's basically that, but instead of random meaningless points from your bank or whatever, it's Satoshis.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah.
I always imagine them being worth more than my purchase when I get rewarded in Bitcoin. I'm like, if I just hold it long enough,
Just about, maybe.
I'll get my money back on my purchase.
In 10 years.
Yeah, we're talking, yeah. But at least it's a possibility. It's fun to think about it. We can jump into the macro. It's Monday morning. The SEC is quiet today. Thank you. But on Wednesday, the Fed raised rates 25 basis points. Friday, we had unemployment come out, beating expectations, lower than expected. We got a CPI report coming out on Wednesday. We have some movement in the bank stocks, a lot going on.
Lots going on in the macro. And the macro is like one of my favorite things to talk about. We're talking at the right time.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch these report numbers. One of the takes that I saw was that they're more important and they could cause more volatility in the market because we're anticipating a pause. It could go, how long is the pause going to be? These reports may carry more weight.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think that's a really good kind of entry point into the Fed and everything that's happened since we last talked. So on Wednesday last week, the Fed raised rates by 25 basis points. That was absolutely expected. Everyone and their mother was expecting that if they knew anything about the economics and the macro. So that was good news. Nothing crazy unexpected in terms of the rate hike. However, his comments were very interesting. Jay Powell, the Fed chair, went softer. He was a little bit more dovish in his speech than previous speeches. And it was a lot more informal. He was a little bit more free-flowing, a little less held back. And as part of that, he said there was a possibility of a pause. So the language has changed from additional measures will likely be necessary to they will take additional measures if necessary. And so that's a big change in language. That's saying they're not necessarily anticipating having to raise rates again. However, he also said if data suggests otherwise, that they don't pause, they reserve the right essentially to continue to raise rates.
Was there any hints about lowering rates in the same regard, like data points, or nothing really in that?
The only big point that he made about lowering rates was that in their current forecast, there was no rate reductions in 2023. So
they're sticking to their line with that one.
Yeah, they're really sticking to that line, and the market still hasn't got that through their heads. The market still seems very hopeful that we see rate cuts heading into November or December.
Maybe it's because the Fed's cutting rates, but then we're seeing volatility in the regional banking. So they just don't want to believe it because they're like, this is breaking and it's going to continue to break.
Yeah, something that a lot of people laughed about what Jay Powell said was that the banking system was fine. A lot of people laughed about that because just before those comments or just after those comments, we saw 5 regional bank stocks tank between 20 and 50%, depending on the bank stock. And at least one of them was considering selling and just going under, declaring defeat. So
I think that was PacWest. That was the one that dropped like 20, 30% the day before, and then 50% right after or something.
Yeah, so there was about 4 or 5 of them. Washington something was one of the other ones that dropped pretty significantly. And so they
made some big moves to try to shore it up. I guess they cut their dividends to 1 penny and rebounded a little bit this morning, but it's came off its lows. But the initial for the rally Monday morning stopped.
Yeah, I mean, there's still pretty strong chances that the market has some continued pain, especially in the banking system. Commercial loans for commercial real estate, that could start seeing a lot of pain as the market kind of pulls back. There's less retail buying and could potentially negatively impact commercial real estate. And we might see defaulting there, which could really negatively impact certain banks. So there's a lot of risks still going on, especially in the regional bank sector. And so the banking crisis is not done by any means.
In all that context, we have the CPI report coming out on Wednesday. I believe the expectations are that it's going to go up a little bit.
I don't think it's expecting it to go up. We're expecting a big drop in CPI.
Because this could bring some volatility to the market on Wednesday, depending on what it does.
Yeah, I think where it falls with CPI and PPI, because PPI comes out on Thursday with some unemployment numbers, we're probably looking for some pain. If CPI bounces too high, then it could signify that, you know what, they're not going to pause yet, especially if core CPI stays in that 0.4 range. We'd really like to see core CPI especially come down. There's a chance we see a slight boost in CPI, not including core, just because of food and energy. So
this is an article from Seeking Alpha, and they're anticipating a rise of 0.4 month over month.
yeah, I'll have to look. I think it depends if they're talking about core or if they're talking CPI. If they're talking CPI, then that's a pretty big boost. That'd be a big jump. We had about 0.1 last month. So
And they're saying core expected to increase by 0.3, but I'm not sure where they're getting these numbers.
both those numbers are 0.3 is good for core, but 0.4 for overall CPI is terrible. I don't know. It could be a really messy step forward. Jerome Powell said himself he's not expecting a soft landing on inflation. He's expecting it to be long and bumpy road. So there's a potential that we see a pause in the June meeting, and then if data continues to come in a little bit bumpy, a little bit hot, then we might see something in the July meeting that causes a raise in rates. So that's also something to consider. Like, most people are saying, yeah, no rate hike in June, but the data could really affect that.
As it gets closer, a lot of the expectation reports will come out. So take a look at it, and I'll be watching this one. While the SEC has taken a break this Monday, I swear it seems like every other week
We're on something about the SEC.
Yeah, something. But they were pretty quiet this Monday morning. But markets are still down. But in some adoption news, couple weeks back, we reported about the Kingdom of Bhutan, that they held millions of dollars in cryptocurrency. It came out in the BlockFi in their bankruptcy filings. This is a news story. A government representative confirmed in a local newspaper, and this is something Forbes dug up, the Bhutanese, that it had begun mining a few years ago as one of the early entrants when the Bitcoin price is around 5,000. It is still unclear when the mining began, where it's located, and whether the scheme has turned a profit. But it does beg the question how many other countries are doing this. And we know El Salvador is going to be doing Bitcoin mining. Not sure if it's online yet, but there's Russia getting more and more involved. And just in addition on this story, Bitdeer, which is a NASDAQ-listed company, announced with Bhutan have declared plans to raise $500 million to establish crypto mining operations that will deploy to the Himalayan kingdom's plentiful hydropower. So that's one of the reasons they're a Bitcoin mining destination, is they have a lot of natural energy.
Yeah, they've got a lot of natural energy and they don't have high demand for it. It's also very remote, so they can't exactly sell it fairly easily to other countries. So it's kind of differs from some other Canadian or other countries where they might have plentiful hydropower. It can be easier for them. They've got easier access to neighbors to sell it to, or have existing demand for it. So it makes sense for Bhutan. If they can, it can put them in a position like El Salvador to not rely on the monetary system of debt. And
yeah, for Bhutan, there's definitely the argument that helps diversify their economy. And if they're able to tap into energy in a way just by creating Bitcoin out of it, that would normally be hard to reach. It's a pretty cool use case for Bitcoin.
Absolutely. And as Bitcoin mining rewards decrease, and potentially energy demands within their country increase, they'll already have that energy capacity available. And they'll be able to basically bring it to their citizens. And at a very cheap price, because they won't have to do it for debt. And they'll potentially have already paid it off through the Bitcoin mining rewards. So it's a triple win for Bhutan without question.
Yeah, and for BitDeer, it marks a expansion into Asia. They're a Singapore-based firm, but they currently operate 6 sites, and they're in the state of Washington, Texas, and Tennessee, and also in the country of Norway. So in Europe, America, and now Asia. So a pretty big move for them too. If you're following them, it's potential investment is something that you could do research on and invest in the United States.
Yeah,
Regulated.
it's very interesting. And it could be good exposure to Bitcoin if indirectly within your own stock account and your
Yeah.
Roth IRA or 401k. Not financial advice, by the way, though.
No, but it's a way to diversify, and just knowing that they're not limiting themselves to the United States, even though they're listed in the United States. That's something I would like to hear.
Yeah.
We'll get into Coinbase a little bit, but yeah, some of the stuff they're doing. But sticking on with Bitcoin mining, Russia has been in the news, and I spotted this story. A crypto mining industry experts from Intelion Data Service Systems, this is a Russian mining hardware importer and distributor, suggests Russia's share of Bitcoin hash rate could grow up to 18%. All the way back in January 2022, Russia made up nearly 4.7%. It's grown since then. But what they're saying is they're predicting a significant migration of crypto miners to Russia from the US, Canada, and China, and Kazakhstan. And actually predicting they'll get half of Kazakhstan's miners. And
Kazakhstan's right there, so that makes sense. The US and Canada, that seems a little bit more of a stretch. A lot more of Canada and the US are looking toward South America and Asia than I would say they're looking at Russia.
They threw a number out like 6% of the miners from those regions. So it wasn't like a huge number. But yeah, they were citing regulatory pressures, tax burdens, rising energy costs, different things for the different countries, but just the overall sentiment.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know why anyone from those regions would go to Russia unless they were like Russian dual citizens.
They only got to send the miners. They're just selling them.
Yeah, but you're still investing money into Russia, which given the current war would have like significant sanction and economic penalties. And so it doesn't make any sense.
Well, just to continue a little bit on with this report, there's a couple other interesting notes. The CEO of Intelion Data Systems, his name is Timothy Semyonov. He contends that Russia is well positioned to reshape the global crypto mining hierarchy. He cites the country's low electricity costs, free capacity, reserves, and well-developed energy infrastructure in many regions as competitive advantage, and also points to Russian companies' expansion efforts and government support for the industry. So he notes all that. An interesting other little macro note that came out of this report, they also foresee the crisis in the U.S. and European banking sectors as just beginning, spurring demand for Bitcoin just in general as a hedging tool and increased interest in the space in general, which I thought was just an interesting little side note there.
It's interesting. I feel like they're ignoring too many issues that are going on with Russia to really properly touch on why.
This was from a Russian firm, so maybe there's some bias there.
That would make sense. That would make a lot of sense.
But it's important to get a little perspective, and this is what some of the sentiment coming from that country and some of the reports coming from that country are saying. So,
yeah. We've talked a little bit about Consensus, the huge kind of convention for crypto that happened in Austin, Texas a couple weeks ago. But there were some very interesting stories that are still coming out, especially around adoption.
Yeah, we covered a lot of them last week. Yeah, there's a bunch of stories.
Yeah, we showed a lot of kind of stories of what's going on, what big announcements, especially from payment firms, were coming out. But there's even more stories about businesses showing interest in Web3, even despite the regulatory challenges in the US. And so I think that is huge for the space. There was over 15,000 people that attended and 410 speakers. So that's a very well-attended event.
Absolutely, yeah. And one of the stories that kind of slipped under our radar, Google Cloud, Google was there. So it was MasterCard, Google, Robinhood, Coinbase, talked about a lot of them. But Google Cloud, late in 2022, so a little while ago, announced a blockchain node engine. I can't remember this, which allows users to develop and run an Ethereum node without having to manage or support it themselves. At Consensus, the firm announced it had expanded for blockchain node engine on Polygon proof of stake. So one little article we mixed, but yeah, it's encouraging to see such a vibrant Consensus 2023. Someone was commenting like, oh, last year when it was bull market, it was all Lambos, and this year it was builders. It felt better almost than last year.
Yeah, well, that's it. I've been hearing that a lot. It was a lot more professional and NFT NYC as well when I was there a couple weeks, I guess a month ago now. So
noted. If I ever attend one, go in an off year. I think I'd like that better.
Yeah, go in an off year, and I've been seeing a lot more people shift towards consensus and permissionless rather than NFT NYC. I'm planning to try to be at permissionless this year as well.
Cool. When is that? Where is it?
In Austin, Texas in September. Late September, I think September 21st. So
that's around my birthday. Maybe I'll join you. I travel in September sometimes. Go back to the mainland.
You rejoin civilization?
Arizona, but was that?
You rejoin civilization?
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, around my birthday sometimes. Occasionally, I'll go back home. But it's not too... Might be fun. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Coinbase, there's a bunch of stories from Coinbase. The U.S., we mentioned about the lawsuit they filed to try... Basically just asking a judge to say, respond. And the judge said, yeah, you got to stop ghosting them. You need to respond to Coinbase within 10 days.
Yeah, and that was about 4 days ago or 5 days ago. So they've got maybe another 5 to 7 days, depending on if you're considering business days or non-business days. That's amazing. It could provide massive regulatory clarity. I feel like everyone's been talking about it. I talked about it on Crypto Consensus and on the Friday Free-for-All. That's huge because it could provide at least some legal clarity without having new regulation passed on what would be considered security within the US. In the worst case scenario, it's everything except for Bitcoin is a security, and then we could see a large kind of pullback in the market and a decrease in innovation in the US, but at least it would create a legislative framework, at least give some clarity on how you can operate or what you need to do to operate in the US.
Yeah, and with official kind of responses, it just gives a path forward. Guys, even if they come down harsh, at least there's a way forward in the courts because they have some information.
Oh yeah, at least there's a way. There's a way of knowing at least what you're doing wrong, if you're doing something wrong, or what. So it'll be massive for the space, no matter what happens, whether it's friendly, not friendly. But I do worry that this might actually just drag out further. I don't know if we'll necessarily get the answer right away.
No, there is definitely the possibility that this ends up in the courts, and that can be slow. Yeah, no doubt about it. But meantime, Coinbase on 5/2, this was last Tuesday, launches International Derivatives Exchange. It's pretty interesting. Coinbase International Exchange has listed BTC and ETH perpetual futures on Tuesday, 5/2. All the trading is settled in USDC, but there's no fiat on-ramps. So you can on-ramp with your Bitcoin and ETH, assuming, or USDC. The contracts initially cover up to 5 times leverage. So you have direct trading access via API and is available to institutional clients in eligible non-US jurisdictions and not available for retail customers at this time. But they're expanding internationally.
Yeah, it's part of a bigger move, expanding internationally. They've been talking about that quite a bit. If we look at their next announcement, which is that they're considering a hub in the UAE, so Dubai, essentially, the country that Dubai finds in.
Yeah.
So Dubai has taken a little bit more of a more open crypto stance and has been pretty open to innovation in the past. And so we're seeing Brian Armstrong, who said at a panel that it would consider it a potential strategic bridge between Asia and Europe. And so It's part of Coinbase's efforts. If the U.S. market decides to shut it down because the SEC is the SEC, then Coinbase is still positioned to do well in other markets.
Yeah, there was an interview this morning where he seemed to walk it back a little bit, but at the same time, actions speak volumes, and he was over there. And they had another where they got a registration. I forget which country, but they weren't doing anything with it, but they had permission to be a digital service provider in an offshore, off U.S. shores. But he did come out in an interview this morning and say Coinbase is not going to relocate overseas. We're always going to have a U.S. presence, but the U.S. is behind right now. But at the same time, I believe he is reserving his right to change his mind. That's his stance, his public stance right now. But I tend to think survival of the business and survival of the industry, as much as he wants to do it in the U.S., it would take precedence eventually for him.
I feel like there's probably some better opportunities for them elsewhere, and just tapping into non-US markets is good for the Coinbase business, and tapping into growing markets rather than shrinking markets like Japan or Germany, for example.
Yeah, the one thing I guess they got going for themselves in the U.S. is first mover for a centralized exchange and just learning how to navigate and deal with U.S. regulators, because political sentiment can change, and we're going to get a little bit into the politics right now.
I think we need to cover something because we're on exchanges right now. Breaking news. Bittrex just filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
Oh, wow.
Within the last 15 minutes. So this is Monday night Eastern time, and Bittrex just filed for bankruptcy. So we're seeing the pressures of the U.S. system on exchanges, and that's another one that just bit the dust. Much like banks, exchanges are still biting the dust.
Yeah, they are suffering under the current regime. This is a question after reading quotes from Ron DeSantis and Robert F. Kennedy. Is there a bullish world that exists that has Ron DeSantis running against Robert Kennedy in a Bitcoin halving year? Just based on their comments. Ron DeSantis coming out very strongly against CBDCs. Robert Kennedy also coming out strongly against CBDCs, but also in support of Bitcoin mining, and comments about the SEC and their overreach. So singing the right words as far as I'm concerned. I was just imagining, God, could these two guys actually run against each other? How amazing would that be?
That would be
fighting over who is the bigger Bitcoin maxi.
That would probably be the most bullish scenario for crypto.
Oh my God.
At the moment. And like at least
in a halving year.
In a halving year. It's literally the most bullish thing that could happen for crypto in US politics at the moment.
But we're gonna get Biden and Trump.
Probably. But let's not delve into those politics too much. There's some very great comments being made by basically candidates that haven't been in federal office, and very funnily, like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is following the footsteps of his uncle about fixing the banking system. And just like his uncle was right before he died and was killed, he's going after the banking system. So some very interesting comments by Robert F. Kennedy and Ron DeSantis about CBDCs not being good for the U.S. and for citizens, and that crypto is a very strong tool for the U.S. and for U.S. citizens. Pretty interesting.
Well, I always imagined it becoming more and more of an election topic. I'm surprised how center stage it's becoming so quickly, and we're still a ways off from the presidential elections really heating up out here and the rhetoric really heating up. But yeah, I was always interested in where it would be positioned in terms of how important of a topic it would be for the nation.
I think it's becoming more and more of an important topic. So I think that is something to watch.
Yeah, definitely. There was an interesting Ethereum transaction. Did you see anything about this? About Vitalik possibly selling, I guess, on May 5th, look on chain? which is a Twitter account that I follow, but it's a tracker, noticed that Vitalik, the domain associated with the Ethereum co-founder, transferred 200 ETH, worth about 400,000, to Kraken, and shortly after. This I didn't see on Look On Chain. I saw this in an article, but shortly after, Ethereum Foundation also made a large transfer of 15,000 ETH worth 30 million. Did you see this? Does that worry you?
Yeah, it worries me a little bit. It is a little bit like, what's going on? Why is Vitalik selling? But the guy also has to
First
live.
time this kind of thing has been done. Any reasons are speculative, but you might need funds to cover operating costs or invest in projects. I haven't seen any reporting of confirming sales, but ETH is down 13% off its April highs and sliding. Looks like everything else today, but still sliding.
And they had record gas fees over the weekend. This meme coin mania has absolutely pumped ETH gas prices, which is good. It's burning a record amount of ETH. And I'm sure that there's probably a reasonable explanation. The only thing that might worry me is whether this is part of a ETH defense fund, if they're secretly being pursued or negotiations with the US, or it's a preemptive move that they're trying to liquidate their ETH positions so that they're not considered too large of a stakeholder, maybe. Those are two possibilities, but that much ETH hitting the market would not be a great thing for
In
the
the
price.
past, this article also noted that Bittrex sold ETH in batches without causing significant price. And like you said, on a positive note, there's a lot of ETH being burned. The numbers were crazy on that. So 31.7 ETH was burned last week or in a week during this meme coin craze compared to 152 ETH since the merge. So a big percentage.
Oh, massive percentage of ETH was burned over this last weekend. My buddy who was buying good Gensler, absolute degen, spent like $100 in gas this weekend, and I'm just like, I hate paying $5 in gas. There's no way I'm paying $100 in gas. I'm delaying tons of transactions.
Like there might as well be a tax on the coin that you're trying to trade. It makes it a lot harder to make money.
Oh, absolutely.
Unless you're playing with significant sums, I guess. But ETH also had some other positive news. Last week, they had an important adoption milestone. The European Investment Bank, the EIB, announced that it had issued its first ever digital bonds on the Ethereum blockchain. So it's just using the blockchain and its capabilities to streamline their business. But still, maybe it's just short-term FUD. Long-term, it's looking good.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also interesting. It differentiates a little bit Bitcoin and Ethereum and other cryptos in that moving ETH to an exchange just doesn't happen with Bitcoin. That's not, or it hasn't happened yet, but it's not likely to happen.
Yeah.
There's no founder there.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little different.
But speaking of cryptos, Cardano had some news too. Did you see this?
Yeah, Cardano went live with Hydra, which is pretty cool.
I love the name.
I'm watching Marvel, and so this reminds me of Captain America. Hydra.
It's a great name for what they're trying to accomplish. So it's like a multi-headed dragon or beast, mythological creature with many heads.
Yeah, it's a layer 2 protocol that's going to operate on top of the existing Cardano blockchain, and it's supposed to improve transaction throughput and overall efficiency. So that's massive. Scalability is always the big question with any blockchain, and so Cardano is thinking about this relatively early, which is great. It's achieving this by essentially creating those multiple heads that you're talking about and processing a subset of transactions independently.
It kind of reminds me of subnets and AVAX a little bit, like creating different areas.
Yeah, it's like subnets on AVAX. It's like layer 2s on Ethereum. It's essentially a new form of scaling or parachains on DOT and Polkadot. So
yeah, one of the cool ways they described it is it enables it to scale horizontally. I thought that was kind of help me get my head around it a little bit.
Yeah, so it's super cool, especially as more dApps are starting to build on Cardano, and we're seeing steady rise in TVL. So
yeah, good 6 months. But yeah, I've always kind of liked Cardano. I've always been very hopeful about them.
You and
Disclosure, I
my
do have a little bit of a bag with them, nothing crazy, but I've followed them for a long time.
yeah, my co-host Grant is also on Not Crypto Bros is also very bullish on Cardano.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm very bullish, but I do what they're building, and I like how they're going about it as far as cryptos go, non-Bitcoin type of things. When you start looking at beyond Ethereum and what ones, it's one I've been keeping my eye on for a little while. But moving on, Trust Wallet. Kind of get into some more, a little bit more obscure stories, but still cool. Trust Wallet to add support for Sui and Tono Coin. I don't know how to pronounce it. Telegram's coin. Trust Wallet users now be able to hold, receive, and send TONs, marking a pretty big achievement for the TON ecosystem. Trust is one of the largest non-custodial wallets in the world, with more than 60 million downloads worldwide. They also, and this kind of came out the day of the Sui mainnet launch, so maybe just a little bit of riding the bandwagon, but they announced that they will be supporting the Sui network, and stay tuned for updates, an announcement about an announcement. But still, adoption with Trust Wallet. I always seem to hear more and more about Trust Wallet. They had a little bit of some FUD and some issues that they seem to have resolved, some security issues that slowed them down a little bit. But
Yeah,
do you use Trust Wallet?
I don't. I'm still on MetaMask, but I know a lot of people are talking about moving to Trust or Rabby or one of the many competitors that have been coming out in the space in the last 6 months to a year.
We can't have a show without touching on meme coins a little bit. You've been playing around with any meme coins? Be honest now.
No, I haven't. I have
No,
not been playing with meme coins because I don't feel like paying the ETH gas fees on them.
Oh, you can find some on like Binance Chain or something.
Oh, I know. I'm just...
They're
Meme
everywhere.
coins have
Right
not
now.
been my thing. I messed with meme coins in the last bull market and got burned more times than I'd like to admit, and so I'd rather I rather not do meme coins at least this time
I don't
around.
blame you. Yeah, it's definitely risky business. There's no doubt about that. There was just to show. There's been so many lately, but this story I thought was funny because it shows how easy a viral video has emerged detailing just how easy it is for anyone with an internet connection to create a brand new cryptocurrency. It shows digital artist Johnny Shankman completing a speed run, which is getting through a level or whatever super fast, deploying an entirely new token in just 27 seconds. He dubbed it easy money. You can quickly create this token utilizing a program called Contract Wizard, created by the crypto security firm Open Zeppelin. Not that I'm trying to recommend doing it, but it's, you want to play around in the space, you can open one up yourself. And already within 24 hours, a new speed record was set in 22.45 seconds. So that's just how easy it is to launch a meme coin. And it does seem to be the season. There are more meme coins.
Meme coins also need marketing, so like you can create the contract in no time, but actually
Right.
marketing it is a whole different thing.
This thing went viral. I wonder whatever happened with it. He claimed it was for nothing, but so that's how meme coin starts. Like whether you like it or not, it becomes a thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Not that, yeah, I don't know that anything ever came of this easy money one. But
No,
meme
I hadn't
coins,
heard of it.
yeah. But did you see? You been following this BRC20 token story?
I've
Meme
been
coins on
hearing about
Bitcoin?
it. It's been milling around, especially now that transaction fees are up so high, but I haven't developed too much into it. Like I haven't delved into it too much.
It was created by a anonymous on-chain analysis called Domo. He created this experiment, the BRC20 token standard. It was started in March. It, as of like today, a $1 billion market cap of all these different little coins. So the BRC token standard allows programmers to create and send fungible tokens via the Ordinals protocol. Unlike ERC20 tokens, they do not make use of smart contracts, but they do require a Bitcoin wallet to mint and trade. But yeah, approaching 1 billion. And it was earlier in the week, I think it was like 200 million, 300 million, something like that. So it seems to be gaining speed. And the fact that it's in this little mini meme season that we're having, or I don't even know if you want to call it a mini meme season anymore, but this meme season we're having right now. Interesting.
Pepe rallied really hard, but it's now dumped quite a bit. It's pulled back significantly from its highs. Gensler's down 50% in less than 24 hours. So is meme season going to keep going, or is meme season dying?
Oh, it's probably pretty close to being over, but yeah, who knows? Maybe it's just a sign of that the summer lull really is coming, and we're gonna start testing. What's the 52-week moving average? Like 25,000 for Bitcoin. We're at like 27 right now.
Yeah, something like that.
I could see a scenario where this is the end of the good year we've had so far, and maybe starts to go below and have to fight back above it, spend some time below the 52-week average. I could see it happening anyway. Who knows? It's hard to predict short-term moves.
Absolutely. It's not something that's easy to do. So stay safe. Don't risk money you can't lose.
Absolutely. Yeah, and thanks for listening to Decentralized News. We post first on YouTube, so please consider subscribing to catch the videos as soon as they drop. Our goal is to provide unfiltered content to help foster genuine discussions to help this entire space grow. Please remember, this is not financial advice, and we are not financial advisors. The show is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research before making any investment decisions. Thank you very much for your support, and stay tuned for the next episode.